escape plan?
Thought I'd try shooting my way out. Mix things up a little.
Let's kick some ass.
Just keep your head down. There's two of us in here now, remember?
Yo, what is up guys, this is Tyrannic Swine here, and welcome to my review of Halo 3. Now, the story begins with the Master Chief jumping out of Prophet of Truth's Forerunner ship and landing on Earth. He reconnects with the Arbiter and Johnson and fight their way through the jungle till they find reinforcements.
2 kilometers, easy.
The Covenant attack the UNSC's base, and they end up evacuating. The Chief and the Arbiter collect reinforcements and decide to mount an attack on the City of Void to stop Truth from finding a way to the Ark. Truth succeeds in finding a way to the Ark and he travels there via portal. The Flood arrive on Earth to try and take it by eating anything alive. The Arbiter and the Chief eventually hold off the Flood, and with a combined alliance with the elites and the humans, they go after Truth to stop him from firing the rings. They arrive on the Ark, and they have to fight through a huge army of Covenant just to reach Truth. Eventually, they do arrive at the control center of the Ark and stop Truth from firing the rings, though they lose Miranda Keyes in the process.
As stubborn as you are.
High Charity eventually arrives to mess things up.
Where is she, Chief?
And 343 knows that they need to activate a newly made Halo ring to stop this new infestation.
You can't keep it.
The Master Chief realizes that Cortana is on High Charity and knows that she has the activation index from the original Halo ring.
Your armor's still in
The Chief and the Arbiter go to the flood-infested corridors of High Charity to rescue Cortana. They succeed and escape, luckily. They arrive on the new constructed Halo ring with Johnson and fight their way through the last remnants of the Flood to the control room.
He's good to go.
Johnson tries to activate the Halo ring, but 343 stops him before, since the Halo is not ready to fire and it would destroy the Ark. The Chief and the Arbiter kill 343 Guilty Spark and say goodbye to Johnson, who dies from his injury. They escape on his Warthog and head to the Forward Unto Dawn to escape the ring from firing. They succeed, but the portal closes just as soon as they get through, and the Master Chief and Cortana, meanwhile with the Arbiter back on Earth, Master Chief and the Cortana are marooned in space. Now, let's talk about the story, the campaign, the storyline. The characters are a little bit different. The Master Chief is still the same mean green badass in armor that you always know, but without Cortana with him most of the time, he speaks a lot more often in the cutscenes of the game, and you start to see a more emotive side to him when he starts to see Cortana being tortured by the Gravemind later on in the game. And it shows that he isn't just an emotionless soldier following orders. There is an emotive side to him left. So the game concentrates a lot more on the Chief in this one. The Arbiter is still in the game, can only be played by the cooperative players. So the game doesn't really focus on the Arbiter in this game, but he is around to help, which is a good thing. Johnson and Miranda Keyes are still the main human characters in this game, though surprisingly both of these characters die. And I didn't think Bungie would have the balls to do this, since Johnson especially is an incredibly popular character because of his comedic, charismatic, confident, cocky attitude. But they did it. And they did it especially well. I'm glad they didn't kill him off in a stupid way. They killed him off near the end of the game, and they did it in a heroic fashion. Especially Miranda, who dies trying to save Johnson from Truth. Now, Cortana's also in the game too, but she only comes in at the very end, so it doesn't really focus on her much, but it shows that she is more broken when Chief finds her after she's been constantly tortured by the Gravemind for any secrets that she's been holding. So, other than that, she hasn't really been focused on in this game. 343 Guilty Spark 2 makes a return after Halo 2. He is apparently helping you, which is, to be fair, he still hasn't got a protocol because the Halo ring he was guarding has been destroyed, so he has no other function, so he decides to help you to stop Truth from activating the Halo rings, killing all sentient beings. Though once he finds out a new Halo ring is being constructed, and it's exactly like the one from the original Halo game, his protocol overrides his actions, and he betrays you, killing Johnson, and you end up having to kill him. And I like this because he is pretty much an annoying character anyway. I mean, he's only there to like ruin your day and everything. He always was. So in the end, you do get to kill him, which is really good. Now the story, I really do like how it shows a bit of the conflict between the new alliance between the humans and the elites, since this is very new. Obviously both sides still have a massive hatred for each other because of the amount of time they've been fighting each other, which is like 20 more years. And I really like how they showed that in the game about their differences. Even though this alliance is just new, yeah, they're not obviously going to get along straight away, especially with the humans having fought elites for more than 20 years. Other than that, the way this campaign plays out, it's really good. It goes, for the first half of the game is on Earth. Obviously this makes up for the lack of Earth battles in Halo 2, because Halo 2 mainly marketed about the Master Chief fighting on Earth, but it really wasn't. So they made up for that in this game. Then eventually you have like 3 missions on the Ark. Luckily they're all very long, so that's a bonus. And the final mission is on the newly constructed Halo. And I really liked how the control room looked exactly, or almost exactly, like the one from Assault in the control room. And I really like that. It's all snowy and everything. And especially, I think the best part of the detail of this game was High Charity being converted into flood mass. I really like the detail they put into that, especially after you were on High Charity in Halo 2. It's definitely changed in this short amount of time that the Gravemind has controlled that place. So yeah, the campaign, even though it's not entirely like new and original, it still is a very good campaign, and it definitely ends this game, the trilogy, on a high note. But it also means that it also shows that there's another story yet to tell. Now, there is some new enemy types in this game. Since the elites are now your allies and no longer your enemies, the brutes are the main heavy infantry types, and so there's a lot more variants to them. You have your miners, you have your captains, you have the jetpack types, you have active camo types, and then you have the chieftains. And these guys are pretty much like the elite zealots, but they have abilities making them more stronger, which can be a pain, especially on legendary. The grunts, hunters, jackals, drones, they're all still the same. There's no more different variations of those. So yeah, the hunters though are a lot more easier to kill in this game. I think the hunters in this game, compared to Halo CE, are probably the easiest to kill. I mean, it takes either 2 sticky grenades to kill them, which is what you're always going to have, like a plasma grenade or a spike grenade, or a heavy weapon will kill them easily, or even a shotgun to the back will kill them pretty easily. Now, there is some new weaponry and vehicles. The Covenant because since the brutes are now the ones in charge, there's a few more of brute variant types of Covenant weaponry. The Spiker, which is the SMG type, Mauler, which is a Covenant shotgun, the Brute Shot has returned, and the Gravity Hammer, which is a legendary weapon at this point, which is a legendary weapon now, is pretty much began in this game. Especially since the only Gravity Hammer you technically see in Halo 2 is Tartarus's Gravity Hammer. But the Gravity Hammer will only be fired by Brute Chieftains. Now the UNSC, they too get some new weaponry. They get a Spartan Laser, which is the first human laser type weapon we see in the game, and it is also a heavy weapon, adding more to the heavy weapon category. Now there's also the heavy LMG type weaponry, like the machine turret, the plasma cannon, and the missile pod, which are all stock attached weaponry, can be snapped away from the stock, and you can use them in a mobile fashion, though they have limited ammo when you are moving around with them, so you won't be able to use them for long, especially the missile pod, since it only has 8 rockets in it when you snap it away from its stock. But when they're on their stock, they have unlimited ammo, but they do overheat from time to time. Now there is some new vehicles in the game. The Covenant have the Chopper and Prowler. The Prowler replaces the Spectre from Halo 2 and is the Covenant's version of the Warthog, and the Chopper is a new brute type of the Ghost, and it's much more tougher as well and more stronger. It does a lot more damage, especially with its dual cannons. This is useful especially on Legendary at range against vehicles. Now, UNSC also get a new vehicle, which is the Mongoose, which is a small scout getaway vehicle. You can have 2 people on board with it, and it's very useful if you put an AI on board with a rocket launcher, meaning you practically have a fast moving Gauss Hog in a way, or a tank, depending which weapon you give them. And then there's the Hornet, which is finally the first flying UNSC vehicle, and we finally get a human flying vehicle finally in this game. It took them 3 games, but they finally did it. The Banshee is no longer your main flying vehicle in this game. You finally have the Hornet, which is, though overpowered in a way, you have rapid fire machine guns and you have lock-on missiles. Well, as long as you're in range of the enemy. So yeah, they definitely added a lot more vehicles in this game, which is a plus. Plus, as well, there's these Scarab battles. Now, the Scarabs in Halo 2 was a scripted event, and it was you could only like take it down once. In this, there's about 3 battles, and you can do whatever you want in taking them down. You can either take them down from the outside with a tank or a Mongoose or a Warthog, or you can damage their weak spots, which is their legs, wait for it to go down, and then jump on board and take out the core of the vehicle. And mainly I decide to do it that way, like go for the legs and then climb on board, because it feels much more of a badass way. But on Legendary, you really do have to think with a strategy and how to take them down. Mainly going for the legs, but make sure when you're on board, make sure to take out the crew members, so have some decent weaponry when you're doing that. So overall, vehicle combat is definitely improved in this game, and I'm really glad about that, along with weaponry. And although the brutes are easier to kill than the elites, they still can pose a big threat on Legendary, so yeah. Now, there is some new mechanics in the game called equipment. These are pretty much the precursor of the armor abilities that you see in Halo Reach and Halo 4. But the thing is, you can only use these once, and then you have to collect another one of them, or a different equipment type to use it. And there's different types. There is Bubble Shield and Deployable Cover, which are the cover-based equipment styles, which the Bubble Shield, bullets and grenades bounce off of it, and you can walk through it, but melee is very close quarters, so an enemy with a shotgun, or if you melee someone, it could be bad for you. Power Drain and Radar Jammer, these are the useless ones. You don't want to pick these up. These are only useful for the AI enemy, since they're mainly supposed to be against you. Then there is Power Drain, which can EMP your shields and EMP vehicles. There's Trip Mine, which is basically a deployable mine. There is also Active Camo, and well, we all know what Active Camo is by this point, but it has a very short duration. You can only use it once, meaning if you're trying to get past an enemy or sneak past some enemies, better use it very smartly and strategically, otherwise you've blown your chance of using it. Now, the soundtrack for this game is awesome. It's definitely, I love how it goes back to the piano and orchestra type style from Halo C, instead of continuing with the rock and guitar type that Halo 2 had. Now, Halo 2, I'm not saying the music soundtrack in that was bad, I'm just saying it was really good in that one. It suited it. It's just that the music and the orchestra and piano type music style suits this game more, especially with what the soundtrack is playing right now in this scene. It suits it, because each soundtrack piece suits the moment in the game perfectly, and I like how Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore did such an amazing job on the soundtrack through all 3 games. Now, the campaign's length is pretty short from the previous 2 Halos. It's only got like 8 or 9 playable missions, which is not a lot, and some of them can be pretty short if you know what you're doing. But the Ark and the Covenant, luckily, are really long missions, so if most of the time in the game will be taken up by those 2 missions. And if you're doing the game on Legendary, it does take time on Legendary a lot, especially when you have to think things through, and the enemy are a lot tougher to take down, and since there's much fewer resources and less useful weapons around. So yeah, overall the campaign's length is decent and alright, but it's quite short in my opinion compared to the other Halo games. Now, let's talk about the multiplayer. It still has the same ranking system as Halo 2, where you kill other players and win matches, your rank goes higher. If you lose matches, or if you spend a considerable amount of time off the multiplayer, your rank goes down. And what kind of annoys them is that you have to spend a lot of your time on the multiplayer or constantly so you keep your rank up. But because the multiplayer is so fun to play and never gets dull, it is such a good it's a thing that I don't really that doesn't really bother me. Now, the level designs are really great. I love each and every single map in their own way. Some of them have interactive objects, which I really do love in map designs in multiplayer games. It makes the game feel like it feels more special, more realistic. I like that kind of feel to it. Like, yeah. And what I also like about the maps is that most of them represent a part of the campaign. Like some maps, like High Ground, are from Earth. Isolation and Valhalla are from the Ark, and Avalanche is from the newly built Halo Ring. And I like the kind of maps where it represents something from the main campaign. I really do love it when maps symbolize after that. Now, map level weapon placement is still very good compared to is much better compared to the previous Halo games. There's always like a special weapon, an energy sword, or gravity hammer, or a rocket launcher in a special place, like in the middle of the map, that everyone will go for immediately. So yeah, the multiplayer works exceptionally well in this game. It feels really balanced and everything. Everyone starts off with the same weaponry as always. So yeah, the multiplayer works incredibly well and I love it. It is amazing in this game and it does a very good job of it. Finally, I want to talk about some of the new additions to the multiplayer section, which is Forge and Custom Game. Now, Forge is amazing for a game like Halo because of the size of the maps in the multiplayer. It is really fun that they've added a build your own map kind of mechanic where you can insert objects into the map and change it up a bit, like change weapon placements, create the objects around, try and just change the map in different ways. And what I love about Forge is what the community can do with it. The community has, at this point in time with Forge, had such creative minds, and the maps that they created were amazing. They didn't even create maps just for people to play on, they created some to show off a design that they made that represented something else, and they loved how it became a tool that people could show their creativity. I love those kind of things in games, and that's why Halo is one of those franchises that I really love, where it shows off people's creativity and imagination to other people who can see what they have done with their work, and it's such an amazing job. Not only that, Halo 3 is where some game modes that become classics these days is where they all started. Grifball and Infection, they started in this game because of the Forge mechanic and because of Custom Game. Because Custom Game, you can change the settings of a game mode's features, and that's what they did with Grifball and Infection. They changed, they swapped things around and it worked incredibly well. And in fact, Grifball was just like one map. It was in Foundry, even though it was still an incredibly popular thing, because it was also made by the popular YouTubers Rooster Teeth, who created Red vs. Blue, which was also an amazing popular machinima type series that was made in Halo. And Infection was basically a zombie type game mode for Halo, and it worked really well. The zombies would have energy swords and they wouldn't have any shields or anything, and the survivors would only have a magnum and a shotgun, and that is still carried on through each Infection type game mode. This is what I loved about Forge and Custom Game, is where you can create your own game modes and maps and you can play on them. And this goes well with the other game modes of the regular game modes like Slayer, Assault, Capture the Flag. It goes well with these other game modes too, and you can expand upon them. And it's the same too for smaller, more newer game modes like Juggernaut, which is where there's a much stronger player with just a gravity hammer, and the other players have to kill him. and they will become the Juggernaut too. So yeah, custom game and Forge are two things in this game that make it amazingly epic, and it keeps you coming back to the game, so you can create your own maps and everything, and you can play it with your friends. So overall, this game has an amazing campaign that ends the story on a high, and then shows that there'll be a new chapter coming along, showing that the story is not over yet. It has an amazing multiplayer, it's so fun, and it's really fun and everything. All the game modes work exceptionally well. Custom game and Forge, they keep you coming back to this game, and it makes the game's longevity last much longer. In fact, this game was still popular even when Halo Reach came out. It shows how much fun this game is, and I will give this game a 10 out of 10. So that is my review of Halo 3, and to be clear, this is my most favorite Halo game of the entire franchise, because it shows how awesome it is. So hope you have enjoyed this review, and put down in the comments below your opinion of the game and how you've experienced it and what you think about it, and I will see you in the next random video.